Get ready to make a cloverleaf tatted snowflake ornament. All you need is your handy dandy tatting needle, and then you need a crochet hook, preferably a size you can see, but you still need a relatively small one. This one is a size 2. You can use smaller, just make sure you're able to see it. There are some really tiny crochet hooks out there. And then you'll need, the one I always use, because it fits my needle really well, is crochet size 10. There is size 20 thread, but it's really, really tiny, and I like to be able to see. And if you get too small of a thread for the needle, which is based on the size of the gap in the bottom of the tatting needle, if you get too small of a thread, your tension's going to be off, and then all of your stitches gets horribly disfigured. To start, you're going to thread the needle. I always have actually extra tail, so you have this part that's attached to the needle still, and then I always grab the part that's attached to the ball, which this is going to be called a ball for now, and add extra, so I have a working space. About arm length, for me, is fairly good, because then you have plenty to tie in at the bottom when you get done, and then you can also just cut off the excess after you hide the tails, which is real. Well, I'll explain later. Okay, so you pick a starting point. You're going to put the needle under the thread, kind of hold it so you don't lose it. I always flip my thread so that I use my pointer finger on my left hand to control where my thread is going. And so I start with the forwards loop, stick my finger under the thread, and kind of pull it back with my left thumb, kind of make a loop where I can pull the needle underneath it to make the backwards loop, so that you have a forwards loop and then a backwards loop. And this is the basic stitch you're going to use for every single stitch in tatting with needle tatting. Okay, you're going to make a second loop, second forwards loop, then you're going to make a second backwards loop. And you're going to do this till you get 3 of these stitches. 1.5, 2. Okay. When you have those 3 stitches, you're going to make a space, which is called a picot, which is a very weird word. So all I do is I get my thumb, I put it over the needle to make my space, and you want to try and make them uniform. So I just use my thumbnail to kind of gauge how much I need. And then I'm going to make the first forwards loop up to where my thumbnail is, and stop it with my thumbnail. Make the backwards loop. Whenever you're making, these will become joining loops. You're not going to count this first stitch where my thumb is, because it's the end of the stitch that we just made. So for every stitch you do, you're going to make one of these stitches, and that counts as 1. So then you're going to make 3 more stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And then you're going to make another one of these loops, and you're going to end up making 3 of these loops for this first ring. And this one is part of the loop. Then we're going to make the next first stitch. This 1, and I'll make the second one. Then we're going to make the third one. That's 2. And then I just slide it down on the needle as I go, just so that I have a good working space at the top of it, because ultimately you're going to end up pulling all of these to the bottom and onto the tail. Okay, and we're going to make the third loop. Again, stopping it with your thumbnail. Make the back half of that loop, and then so this one still doesn't count because it's part of the loop that we're made. We're going to make the first stitch, and then the second stitch, and then the last one. And then these needles, they're like kind of blunt at the bottom, so if you rub them on your skin, it doesn't hurt at all. You just know that you're doing it. Okay, now that we have these 3, we're going to close this ring. To do that, we're going to grab the tail at the bottom, which is down here, which is why I have so much. You're going to grab it and pull it to the top of the needle, up here, and just kind of do a counterclockwise, like yarn over, so that you have your needle in the giant loop of string. Then you're going to grab it with your left hand or right hand, which however you hold your needles. You're going to hold the top stitch up here, and then you're going to gently pull the needle out, which will then kind of bunch it up at the bottom. And then you just pull that straight through. I'm going to move this because of the thread. And you want to hold it in here, because if you don't hold it, you're going to lose your tension and it's not going to look right. So hold it and keep pulling. And then you can get knotted really easy, so just every once in a while twist your thread back to where you maintain the open loop at the bottom of the tail. And pull it through, and when you pull it tight, you will get your very first tatted loop. And now, sorry, I'm pulling that just a little bit tighter. Okay, and it's the size of my thumbnail. Now to continue the close, after you have it like this, to make sure it keeps stability, I always get my needle and put it through. This is a part that's attached to the ball. This is your tail. I get the needle with the tail and attach it, bring it behind the loop of the ball, and bring it back through itself so that I can make just an easy knot. Sometimes you just flip this. So you get a good knot there, and then you close it, and then it stays that way. Now that you have the very first ring of the clover leaf done, we're going to go to the second ring of the clover leaf. To do that, what we're going to do is we're going to make 3 stitches, just the same way we did it, except instead of having to start with on the string in just a random point, we're going to start at the knot that we made on this loop right here. Okay, so just get that flush with that knot. You're going to make the first stitch. Get my fingers back together. And then usually when I start at this point, because of how I start my loop, I'm just going to redo that loop. Since I always start it like this, you can, actually that works better. Just pull it straight down. When you make the second half, just go to the back of that loop, pull it down to make the second half of this loop. So then you make 3 of the normal loops. So you got the front one, the front stitch, then the back stitch to make 1. So now we have 2. You do that a 3rd time, and then through the back. Okay, now we're going to make a joining loop. So we're going to get a crochet needle, it works the best for me. We're going to push it through the very last loop that we made on that first ring. We're going to grab the thread, we're going to pull it towards you, and then put it on the needle itself. So it's just, there we go. And then slightly pull it to where it stays in place, and then just pull it taut. And that counts as the first half of the stitch. And then you're just going to make a backwards loop to keep that in place. So now we're going to make 3 of the stitches. So go through the front, and then the back. And since I hold everything pretty much with my right hand, it gives me the ability to move my needle around the thread as I go. So I can use my hand to move my thread, or I can use the needle to move it for me. So now that's the first stitch. We're going to go make another stitch. So that's the first half. And then the back half. We're going to make 3 of these. So we're at 2, and then this will make 3. And then we're going to make 3 of the loops, but they're not going to be joined to anything. They're just going to sit there for now. And so I use my thumbnail to make a space, and then we make the front of the stitch, and then the back of the stitch, which if you're counting on the instructions, this one is not written down because it's officially part of the loopings of the peacock itself. So we're going to make 3 more stitches. So we're going to make 1, and then 2, and then a 3rd one. Most of this is just count to 3, make a loop, count to 3, make a loop. So it makes it really easy. So now we have the equivalent of 2 peacocks on this part of the ring that we're doing. We're going to make a total of 5 of them. The first one and the last one will be joined to a ring when we get done. So we've got 1, 2. I'm going to make the 3rd one. The string, make the frontward half of the little stitch, and the backwards half. It's 1, which doesn't count because it's a part of this peacock stitch. And we're going to make the very first one. It's one, and then the front of the second, and the back of the second. Then the front of the third, and the front of the third. So now we have what will be 3 loops, because that one counts as 1, 2, 3. We'll do this 5 times, or to make a total of 5.